Integration tests. So again, what are integration tests for? So as we talked before, it's important to test multiple parts of the system if they are working correctly together. So you have tested before multiple components in isolation, but when you assemble them in one big structure, does that structure still work correctly? And that's what we use integration tests for. So let's take a look at the code, what we have for our application tests. So let's just briefly take a look at the dependencies. You're going to need a few more dependencies. You're going to need Mockito and Mockito Android and Espresso Core as Android test implementation because, well, the tests are executed on Android device. And when we have that added, we can now take a look at the test itself. So this is stock portfolio list test, which will test the activity of showing your portfolio. And what's so special about it? So what we have done here is that we have chosen to mock out portfolio repository. And that means that we won't be actually saving or loading data from our actual persistence framework that's using Room, but we'll just apply a stub mock data for it. And we want to do that because we're not interested here in testing the integration with the persistent system. And we want to take control of the data that's displayed in the user interface, and we want to test the interaction of the user interface and subcomponents that it's using. So as before, we have an activity test rule, but this time it's a little bit different. We override here before activity launched method, and in this method that gets executed before the activity is launched, we will replace the dagger component and we set up our custom repository. So let's now take a look at what's actually happening in this method. So replace dagger component basically constructs a new dependency injection tree that has a mocked module instead of portfolio module. And it's a little bit different in a way that it returns reference to the portfolio repository that will be managed by Mockito. And that in turn will allow us to control what kind of data portfolio repository does return. When we have done that, we have updated our main component, our dependency injection tree, with a new version of it. We can set up repository, and that means whenever we request get portfolio items, we will make this method return this specific item, one item that we just defined here, and it's going to be FPRs. So, given this, and now we know that our repository will return just this one item, FPRs, we can make a test for it. And now, since we expect that item, we will test if it exists when we launch this test. Well, and we can execute a test. Again, it's going to be executed on the emulator. Again, it was a very quick execution. And the test passed. So that was an example of integration test. You can provide a better naming. You can just, for example, rename this test and just add integration test name. So you are showing others that what is this test about. And we have seen how to mock out certain components using Dagger to make the testing easier. And in the next video, we're gonna take a look at the end-to-end tests with User Interface Automator, another framework that's provided by Google.